We wake up the next morning, get everything together. The porters come and they negotiate, and they literally hand pick the porters. You might see some of them around here. These are the local porters, and a lot of them are women. You know, I've only seen 1 or 2 males, but most of them are women carrying these massive amounts of weight. And there's even one woman here that has a baby on her shoulders while carrying a giant bag. And we get to a spot where our guides tell us there's a shortcut if we can cross here.
So we're about to cross this, or try to at least.
So we go up to it and we're looking at it and we're like, we don't even see where you can cross. We're talking like barely seeing the top of the iceberg of a rock. And you have to step on those as you go. If you slip and fall, you're going down that river. I don't know where you're gonna stop at. So we're able to slowly make our way across this river and then climb up this, you know, like handmade wooden branch bridge to get to the safety spot. And then from there we'd wait and watch the porters as well. Then we continue on through the jungle. Some of it gets super thick where we have to kind of chop through it. Mud going down to up to our knees, just super heavy, thick stuff. And then we come to another crossing. This time there's a log that we get to walk on. The only problem is that the log is soaking wet because it's so close to this rampant rapid that it's splashing the log. So imagine even though you're on a log 12 inches across, it's slippery.
The faster you go, the better it is.
It rains every day here. They say that there's like 4 days of no rain, and we only got rain for about 5 minutes, and then 15 minutes later we were at camp. We were able to set up our tents. Back here, this is the porter tent. So all of these porters sleep under it. They have 2 fires going in there, and you can go in there and hang out with them and just kind of communicate via hand signs. We had dinner. We were able to, you know, get things to kind of dry out. Nothing really dries here, so our socks are still wet. A lot of our gear is soaking wet, but that's a part of it. But we're excited about hiking to Camp 2 today.
No.
Am I on this? Oh, okay. Confusing me. It's the end of day 2, and we're hanging out by the fire. We're actually in the porter tent right now, just hanging out with a lot of the locals. They're so generous all the time. And our camp outside, it's so crazy. Like, there's barely any room for any of the tents, but somehow we've got both of our big Agnes tents set up. We're doing good. The blisters are starting to kind of creep up. Nothing really dries out here. So even if you lay with your socks or fall asleep with your socks against your body heat, they don't really dry. So that's kind of the tough part with all of it. I think John and I both have been wearing the same clothes every single day, probably for a week now, since Australia, to be honest. But the best way I learned from Timothy Ettridge to dry clothes was to keep wearing them. Tomorrow we hike up a little bit to some higher elevation. Currently we're at 9,873 feet.